Hello, Freedom fans. I'm Aaron, the CEO and president of the Freedom Real Estate family of companies. And I'm here with Chris Sineno. He's a property manager, director of property management, and runs our whole team that does property management.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
This is a cool subject that we're getting into.
Yeah.
We touched on it a little bit in the blog. And here in podcast 45, we'll go into a little bit more depth about exactly how and why you moved from a property management oriented cost structure to a owner focused cost structure for property management services.
Yeah. And you've been actually pretty key in having some of those conversations about how we should approach it. And
it's easy to pull me into that.
Yeah, we joke, run the experiment is the thing you usually say. I think I mentioned it in the vlog too, but we talked about just briefly that how do you roll out a major change on pricing to a very interested 200 owner client stakeholder base in a way that shows value. And
the how is interesting.
The how was really interesting. So when I started having this conversation, first off, this was kind of spurred by some research that I was doing in the market and kind of putting a thermometer on why clients were transferring properties to us from other property management companies. What were their pain points? Right. And most of them came down to fees. Like they felt...
So you're hearing pain in your customer base.
Right.
And figuring out how can we do this different?
And identifying like where we were also aligned with some of those same feelings for some of our clients and taking that personally. Like we started really measuring owner joy is what we're calling it. But honestly, it's owner emotion, expectation, and kind of a light bulb situation went off is that we actually manage people's expectations and deliver on those expectations and their emotion, not so much an asset. An asset's a byproduct, kind of like the method, the mode of doing that. So how can we use that emotion and that feeling, align it with their goal, right? If they bought a duplex and they want to have 5 duplexes, how can we get them there? Which is what Freedom Real Estate's doing. And we talk about passive income and financial freedom, all those things, and the PM is one of those things that needs to help.
So let's back up a little bit to the why. You said you started measuring owner joy. We were involved in that together. We started kind of engaging. How do we measure whether we're doing a good job, right? Right. And so we get feedback, good and bad, and we digest it and work through it or whatever. And you guys did a fantastic job turning around, communicating with owners and so on. And so part of that, you also add a lot of new owners and properties doors to the portfolio that you manage. So in the process of those things, you're hearing an opportunity, lots of pain that keeps coming back to fees, right? Right. So tell us a little bit about, let's start with how does the industry do it? Like, what's so broken about the way that the standard conventional way of doing pricing in the industry? Yeah, because I think that'll shed some light on then, like the why you went about kind of visioning a better future. Yeah. So I attended a couple conferences, like big like training events for property managers, talking about new technology and the easy way of doing things, which we adopted a couple things that kind of help streamline a lot of our processes. But one common denominator was, property management companies that manage for clients outside of the company, meaning that the interested parties that own the property management company aren't the ones with the properties. 50 doors. Right. We're talking about third-party owners that are not a part of our organization. Yep. What are their big pain points? And a lot of them come down to fees. I mean, I think it's a common misconception that real estate owners make, if the rent's $1,000, they're making $1,000 a month. There's fees and things that come out of that before they get their $100, $200, $300 check. Yep. So we started looking at that and started hearing that feedback from our market, from our just a little section of the world. It was a common thing. And honestly, when I get on those calls with clients that are thinking about using our company, they've seen us in Facebook and other areas, talk to CJ and other people here at Freedom. That's one of their biggest questions. They don't care about what the property's going to rent for. How much? They want to know, okay, when a work order comes in, how much am I paying? And when you lease a tenant, how much is that going to cost me? Like, it's their mindset as an industry is 100% what's the fee. Okay.
And at first, like we had fees. Okay, I mean, we never really had a maintenance fee, but we had a tenant placement fee, leasing fee. We had a renewal fee, termination fee, all of those things because we had to sustain a business model too.
Okay, so slow down. Let's go through that again. So that we did things the conventional way, right? And so the conventional way is we bill customers for what? So let's go through it again.
Specifically, the time when we started up till recently, we would have a standard management fee, which is comparable to the market in the industry. A tenant placement fee, so we're billing, or leasing fee are kind of interchangeable.
So in
terms.
The industry, the normal thing that we're changing from, right? This is the old way that we were doing it. Is that we would bill our owner when we place a tenant in their property. Okay.
Yeah, if we touch a task, we bill a task. Okay. With some exceptions in there, but for the most part, that's kind of how the industry works. But the big mindset shift started happening when we started gauging owners' feeling and gauging what their major pain points were and started to align with their interest. And it's kind of, you can't say on one hand, I'm aligning with your interest, I'm going to share this pain, but then also slap them with a fee when they're feeling
them every
pain.
time something sucks about the
right.
So
water heater breaks.
Thing,
yeah. Turns is a big thing. I mean, we were charging a 10% fee, which is industry standard for rehab projects when a tenant moves out. Okay. But I did a quick analysis of a couple owners that had like $8,000-$9,000 turns. Not only does that hurt because it washed out their entire year's worth of cash flow, which is a pain and kind of sucks on its own. But also now we're slapping a $900 to $1,000 fee on top of that, and then turning around and leasing the property and charging another 100% of the first month's rent.
In a rental investor's life is the worst period.
Is the worst.
Right? So if you own a stock, you have a bear market, things go down.
Right.
That's your bad time, right? You own a rental property, the tenant leaves and the place is trashed, and you have to kind of fix it up.
Right.
Put a new tenant in there. That's their bear market. Right. That's the worst. That's their worst case scenario, right? And the traditional property management pricing model is to bill for all of those activities that we do on their behalf, right?
Correct.
So the market kind of takes a dump on your investment portfolio, and then we layer in extra stink on top of it, right? That's when I say we, I mean the conventional property management model, right? Yeah. So the why makes sense,
right?
That sucks.
Yeah.
that's the why. That sucks.
And we talk about being like one of our first taglines for IPM is we're a property management company for investors by investors, because that's what we are. Danny and Flip, you, me, Steve, all these parties in this company that make the decisions. We're all investors in some form or fashion in real estate. So we couldn't say, hey, we're for investor by investor, but then also charge those in tough times. So I started really looking at the finances of the company and like, okay, where can we put a little bit back in the owner's pocket without, putting us in a tough spot. And the reality is like, let's just strip some of this stuff. And let's align
honestly
with what they want to do.
We can't operate with less.
Correct.
Right? It's not like we're making money hand over fist doing property management. That's part of what we do in the turnkey process, right?
Yeah.
But we still have to make money.
Right. So I had to figure out, okay, how can I put this in a position where we're not better off? We can still provide services. Because ultimately that's what it comes down to. If we can't afford some things like overhead, then we can't sustain a business model to keep providing services to our clients. So there has to be a little bit of give and take there. So we looked at what is the highest impact activity that makes the clients feel warm and fuzzy. Yeah. So starting at the beginning of the experience, tenant placement. Okay, they just bought the property, or it was just fresh off a rehab that they had to have some pain to spend a little bit of money to get to that point where we're putting a tenant back in. How about we just place your tenant for free?
Okay.
I'm not going to charge a tenant placement fee because first off, you've already gone through a bad experience. You're having to pay a little bit of money out, or you just bought a property.
That's a bad
and
time. That's not when we want to be delivering a bill.
Correct.
Right.
So if you buy turnkey from us, if you buy property from Freedom Real Estate Group, that tenant placement fee is covered by the company anyway.
Good.
But we rolled that into the rest of our portfolio. So if we have, Joe Schmo investor that buys in Dayton and they choose our company, we're going to give them the freedom bonus of just not having a turn.
Right. Your property's empty. Your life already sucks as an investor. We're going to help you get on your feet. Yeah. That's not when we want to be sending you a bill.
Absolutely. Right? However, I've been asked, well, what's your incentive to put a good tenant in there if you're not getting paid anything? Well, a renewal fee.
Okay.
If the tenant goes in and they love the place, which means that it's a gauge that we're doing a good job.
Right.
When it comes to renew, it's $250.
Nice. Okay, so that's a peak moment for an investor. Right?
Absolutely.
Like my tenant decides they're going to stay longer.
Right.
That's best case scenario.
Yeah, some little
rent. I don't even have to shampoo the carpets.
Yeah, a little rent increase, a little, throw a ceiling fan or something to spruce
You're winning,
the place
we're
up.
winning is the
$250. And most of our portfolio, that's about 25% of the rent, maybe up to 30 or 40%. So it's not 100% rent loss for a month. It's a nominal fee. And that also shows that we're doing our job. Now, there are situations that people move out and do things that have nothing to do with PM, but for the most part, people renew. They like the place.
Yeah. I remember when I made this analogy in the earlier, the vlog we were talking about when I was young and broke and wrote a check that I couldn't cover in my checking account, right? And the bank bills you, whatever it is. I don't know what it is now, but it's like $25 or something.
30, $40, something like that.
Yeah. So, that's a painful experience.
Right.
And you're down, and then you're kind of kicked while you're down, right? If the bank was, charging me a fee at a time when I'm doing good, right? I would expect then that they'd be saying, "Hey, watch your balance. You careful." Whatever. I don't know how that applies in banking. Maybe it's not a great analogy,
Right.
But what I love about what you're suggesting, it reminds me of that experience where, like, when things are the worst, my service provider, is making money. When
Right.
things are the worst for me, not their fault or whatever in the banking example, but in the property management example, it's when we've done a good job keeping our tenants happy, responding to the work orders on time, communicating with them. The city delivers a notice, we make the call, we engage, we help, right? We create a good living experience for the tenants. We do all those things, and then it leads to a better renewal rate. That's a win for that owner, right? And that doesn't come for free. There's activity that goes into that, obviously.
Right.
It's a win for us as well. We would rather be collecting money when you're winning, I guess is kind of the moral.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think what I love about it is not just that it's less painful for the owner, but it also actually incentivizes us. It incentivizes us, right?
Right, absolutely.
As opposed to like this old model where we're billing for turns, billing for placing tenants. It's almost like we want them to turn. Right? We don't, but
Well, you're right. Well, and that's actually some of the
conventional industry standard is
exactly,
that you make
absolutely.
your money when bad things happen. So you're kind of incentivized to bad things, right?
Yeah, I've actually heard that in conversations with clients. Is they're like, "Oh, well, what's your incentive to keep a good tenant in there?" And actually, some clients have had a bad experience where the tenant was great. That's what they go to. Like, well, you got paid a leasing fee and all this, and I'm just like, well, that's never the goal. So. The goal is to put quality tenants in there, and we share in the pain if it's not good tenants, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
we lose revenue.
We lose revenue
in a billing model where we bill for renewals instead of billing for placing tenants. When you lose a tenant, when your tenant turns over every year instead of every 10 years, that sucks for us,
right? Well, and then a step beyond that, because we're in the business of emotion, is like we also lose trust.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, for me, in this setting publicly, like trust is almost as important, if not more important, than the revenue of a renewal fee.
True.
Because we have to have clients that trust us, and part of that is they're trusting the product we provide, which is tenant placement too. So,
trust is huge. What percentage of our owners are local? Probably a very small percentage.
Very, very small. Probably less than 10% that are local to the state of Ohio.
The vast majority of our owners are out of state.
Correct. Yeah.
So having a pricing model, they don't get to talk to us every day. We don't get to talk to them every day. Most of them have other careers, and we have hundreds of other customers or whatever else. So having a pricing model that just aligns interests, it's like you're starting with trust. That's huge.
Right. Yeah.
That's a good observation.
Yeah. So a couple of things that we strip back is we talked about the placement fee. Industry standard says there's a vacancy fee. Usually it's somewhere like $50-ish a month. And it's intended to cover utility billing and things like that, like things that we have to do on an operational level. However, we want to share in that. If your property's vacant, the owners aren't cash flowing, they're not making any money. Obviously there is a fee that we have that's I don't remember what we call it. But essentially, if like we don't have contact with the owner, like the owner's not responding and it's vacant, it's a non-performance fee is what we call it. Okay, but again, it's still nominal. It's like $50
because we can't do anything.
Because we can't do anything. We have to have approvals and stuff. But even then, like that doesn't get started for like 2 or 3 months of vacancy. Usually it's about 2 months.
Okay, so
of no communication.
99% of owners that really care about a vacant property and engage when those things happen.
Very, very rare.
They're not seeing extra costs for us to oversee a vacant property.
Correct. Okay. Maintenance fees, like I said, industry standard, 10% of anything we touch. If we take a call, we charge 10%. And that's for in-house maintenance and vendors. We've never really billed that. But one thing that we've added that's a definitely value add for our clients is we built an in-house maintenance crew. And that's probably ramped up probably in the last quarter, probably 4 or 5 months. But we started mid-year and we've slowly just worked out processes, worked out some kinks and stuff. And per hour, that billing rate is much more affordable than any general contracting vendor that we've outsourced in the past. Of course, we still have to have a skilled trade.
Yeah, we're saving money and our owners are saving money.
Correct.
Building that team.
And because we're saving clients quite a bit of money, like the pricing model for the in-house maintenance team leaves room for us to have a little bit, as part of that, but it's still I think we're pretty modest on our billing rate. It's immediate service. Like we're talking about 24, 48 hour turnaround if somebody's on site assessing and, we're getting, and that's also feeds back into the residents wanting to renew because that's one of the big sticky points for residents is their maintenance getting taken care of quickly. Yeah. So it kind of all feeds back into that aligning with our client's interest. Yeah. And it kind of comes in many different phases.
In-house maintenance provides us a little bit of revenue. Right. But more importantly, reduces the cost to our owners for regular handyman and scoping kind of services that every vendor is billing, $80 to $100 for. Right. We can undercut that by a huge margin.
Right. And that overall, like I said, it's not our maintenance fee plus 10%. Like it's just their hourly rate and materials. That's it. That's awesome. Whereas like a vendor for the same as a job will charge 30 to 40% more, and then
on their schedule,
and all of that. A little bit more quality assurance issues, things like that. So that's a big thing. So it's not a straightforward, hey, we cut this fee. It's more of we optimize the fact that we don't never charge that fee to begin with.
So that was a little bit of a risk, obviously, building out that team. Knowing that they're going to be busy enough and that they're going to have the right skills.
Yeah, industry standard maintenance is one of the biggest thorns in PM. It's the hardest thing to get right. And so it's a big risk, and I think we're in a position where it's coming on top. I think we're talking about adding more maintenance people, and that's a good position to be in. So this year is going to be instrumental to see how that rolls out. There's actually companies in our market that all they do is maintenance for property management companies because property management companies just generally struggle with that. And most of that's a quality standard. Some of that's pricing. Some of it's they charge 10%, so they can go in to do a Band-Aid fix, go back out and charge another 10%. So we don't align with that. So we want to do it right the first time at an affordable price.
Yeah, that really is huge because every time we put a call out to an outside vendor, our owner is swallowing a big markup. Right. That vendor is just going to charge more. Right. Same thing for your own home or whatever. You call a plumber out there just to show up. It's you're looking at $100 or whatever. Right. So every time we have to use an outside vendor instead of our own team. Right. So the more plumbing, the more electric, the more gutter repair, the more whatever that we can take care of in house, the more cost savings it is to our owners.
Exactly.
And it adds a little bit of revenue if we mark that labor up just a little bit. So we get to mark it up some, nominal amount that would not be viable as a standalone service.
Correct.
But as part of a property management team is a huge win because it kind of aligns our interests.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah. A couple other things with fees. Because maintenance is a big one. We probably have our own whole podcast just about maintenance structure.
I'm cutting myself off now because my head's immediately going. How do you normalize the staffing level and all?
And a lot of and the other thing, like another thing we did with that, actually, since you brought that up, is turns. So we talk about normalized staffing level for maintenance. One of the things we did was we tried to bring turns in house. because an average turn, like when I released the documentation, alerting the owners in November about the pricing model, like turns is one of those big things. Average turn last year, unfortunately, was close to $8,000.
Wow.
Average, which means that some were like 15 and 16,000, some were 2.
Yeah. Sure.
So that's a big range. And a lot of that had to do with coming out of COVID, material availability, timelines, vendors also just marking up their prices a little bit more because they can. So we made a huge decision to bring turns in-house, which means that we let several vendors go that had been with us for years. We go first to our rehab team. And then we also have our in-house maintenance crew. So
we've got 2 lines of defense there, right?
Right.
We've got kind of 2 fronts. One is our sister company,
correct,
Bulldog Renovation. So when there's a larger scope project,
right,
we can go to our sister company and get favorable rates,
right,
because they care about our tenants' experience.
Correct.
They're renovating our turnkey products and so on. They probably, for a lot of our portfolio that we manage, they probably worked on that property already.
Correct.
Right? So if 3 years later they have to do a turn or whatever, they are familiar with that property. And then for the lighter weight stuff that takes a couple of days or whatever,
right,
our maintenance teams.
Right. So we talk about work order volume because when we started a maintenance department, part of the need there was that we had vendors that weren't very responsive, and we had 400 work orders in the system, which was a lot of upset tenants, a lot of owners upset. And
we had less doors and twice as many work orders.
Yeah, I think we had 2.5 to 3 work orders per unit is when we actually did the math on that. On average, there was definitely
probably 50 of them that were just like repeats of the same thing because we didn't get to it fast enough.
Right. So when we looked at all that, and and then honestly, when we started looking at this pricing model, like, we hired 2 maintenance guys, and just those 2 maintenance guys and a little bit of TLC, we were able to pull that volume down to, on average, less than probably about 40% of our properties actually even have a work order. Actually, probably closer to 30 now.
Right, because
that maybe even have a work order.
Right.
So when we look at that, like, okay, well, there's going to be a day when we only have a couple work orders, and half of those are going to be vendors like HVAC and plumbing and things that are above our guys' scope level. What are we going to have our guys do, right? So turns. They get first pick of turns because they can go in and bill 10, 15, 20 hours. Huge cost saving for the client.
Start incentivizing your team to re-up people's leases.
Yeah.
You're going to run out of turns to do.
Well, there's a little bit of give and take with that.
I'd rather have maintenance guys sitting around because the properties are in great shape.
All rented. And and I would love to be in that position. I think we're working toward that, and it's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah,
but the big cost saving for the client's a huge win there.
Yeah.
100%.
Dude, that's awesome. So the staffing level reference I made was about that, hitting that level where you have just enough. Right. We have just enough people to stay really busy, and we're always going to have to outsource a little bit because otherwise you're overstaffed. Right. And then our pricing has to be, has to reflect that and so on. So figuring out that staffing level and getting it just right is pretty key in delivering the perfect amount of value to the owner at a minimal cost. Yeah. That's really cool.
The last thing is industry standard for fees, and then we'll kind of go into some factors that influence this and kind of hit this thing home. But when Danny and I sat down, I remember this, when we first sat down after I was initially hired to come in and help start IPM and get the ball rolling, we kind of talked about our mission, vision, value, and goals, and what pain this organization had as a turnkey product and providing PM and what that needed to look like. And one of the things early on that was a big ticket item, because we took over 56 units from another PM that our clients were experiencing some pain from, and we were bringing them in-house to IPM. And one of the bumps that we incurred several bumps in that process, but one of the big bumps was the other PM was charging a termination fee for their contract. Now, the owners are in pain. Like, they gave notice they were supposed to in their contract, but they still got charged $200 a pop just as they exited. Wow. And so one of the things early on that Danny and I discussed was, I don't want to charge clients.
That's the prenup of the future, right?
Right.
I want you to sign this contract. You get none of my stuff, and you have to pay me if you leave me.
Right.
What a bizarre,
Right. And so we did 2 things. So I think for the first year, we had 1-year contracts because we acquired all those. We wanted to get them locked in, made sure they were taken care of. But very quickly, we moved to a 30-day contract because you have to like me.
Right.
Like, and I have to like you. And I mean, this is a relationship more than it is a business agreement. Yeah. So, and part of that is termination fees. Mm-hmm. If our relationship's not working out, client to PM, that's okay.
Yeah. Trust is a big deal.
Yeah.
There's so many little tasks that have to be done, so much that has to be communicated, particularly when things are bad.
Right.
And so if there's a sniff of discomfort,
right,
you're almost better off with a subpar property manager that you trust more for whatever reason.
Right.
So having people locked in and coerced into staying with us or whatever is problematic.
I don't want people to feel obligated.
Right.
Like, it's one of those things.
That's just false. There's a bad relationship. It deteriorates your expectations and so on.
So we have a month-to-month agreement. Now, there is worded that we'd like to have up to 60 days notice. 30 is preferred minimum.
Most of what we're doing takes
because it takes time sometimes, especially if we've had rapport with the residents, we have to get them aligned with somebody else. Like, that's a process. Mm-hmm. It's not something we can just sever on a Friday, pick up on a Monday. Right. However, like, there's no termination fees. Yeah. Like, there's no early termination. You give me some notice, like, we'll work together. Yeah. We're going to facilitate that.
You said it really well. You have to like us. I mean, in order to be our customer, you have to be somebody who trusts and respects and wants to be working with us. I don't want 8 months on the end of a year-long contract in which you're just there because you're obligated to be, right?
Absolutely.
That's not even a contract we want to enforce, so why have it?
Right. And that kind of trickles into our turnkey thing too, because old turnkey, right? Turnkey, OG turnkey is what they say. They would have rules about warranties that you had to stay with the in-house company for X number of years in order to get the warranty. And it, and that cost, I mean, if the relationship with the PM doesn't work out, like, that's why people buy turnkey. Yeah. Is for the property management experience.
Half of it's the rehab, half of it's
turnkey, half is So that's why I work so closely with Steve, because he's the other half of this yin yang situation. Mm-hmm. And if the client has a bad experience, they need to be able to leave.
Right. That puts us in a position where we have to earn their business every day.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sign a contract.
Absolutely.
And then slough off for the next 11 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
Respect every day.
So, like, when we started measuring owner experience, that was one of the things we did. We discussed about, we call him Ivan, right? His journey. How many touches does this person have, and who they know who to talk to. Mm-hmm. And part of that is we layered in have a conversation with Chris phase. Mm-hmm. And because we get on the phone and our interests aren't aligned. And that's okay. Yeah. But at that point, then I can have that frank conversation with the turnkey team and be like, hey, I don't think this client's going to go with our company. Yeah. And we can set an expectation and even get them aligned with another property. I mean, that happens very, very rarely. Probably.
I think we had one recently, actually. It is rare, but I just recall.
Yeah, I think 1 out of 20.
Yeah,
maybe?
They wanted to manage their property in a way that didn't fit our model.
Right.
And we said, hey, we'd suggest a different property manager.
Right, and that's going to work out. Actually, he ended up
that's the kind of asset we like to get into.
Actually, he did actually sign with us.
Yeah. Good.
So we agreed to 1 year.
But we'll see where we're at next year. Right. When you put the cards on the table and you make sure that you're both trying to accomplish the same things. Right. Our capabilities, what we're great at, what are you trying to accomplish? They should match up. That's right. And if that changes at some point in that venture, you want to turn your property into a garage that you rent out to whatever. That's not a strong suit for us.
Right.
Then, we want to be able to, allow you to do what's right for your business. Right?
Yeah. So, and that comes into, like, we don't, like, IPM, our company doesn't really market for new investors. Like, we don't go out there and advertise and say, hey, come look at us, because we don't say no. We don't say yes all the time. Like, sometimes we say no. And that's because we're very specific. And our client base is very specific. And we talk about location. We talk about what services we provide, what we don't. We talk about the owner pricing model. We talk about all those things. And
I just passed a property that I was out driving this morning, and it had a little bar operating out of a garage.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, whatever, something booth or whatever. It was like a little bar operating. You want to manage a bar?
No. There's a lot of liability with that one. Yeah.
There are things we'll say no to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's okay. I think there's a stigma around saying no is a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Like, my dad used to say, no, say no more. You'll win more if you say no. Yeah. And it took a while to learn that. But part of that's like saying no to fees. Not to be cliche, but I did have a client when we were rolling this out. He emailed me privately and he was like, so how are you guys making money? Mm-hmm. And we kind of explained it here. Like, we're incentivized to do the actions that
renewals
bring you the most value.
And when we can do your maintenance with our own team.
Right.
Like 2 ways in which when you're winning, we're billing you.
Right.
That's awesome.
And then the other thing we did is and this is probably a whole different podcast, to be completely honest, but holding residents accountable. Like, we're not just renting properties. We are providing homes to adults who need a place to live. So you need to share in that. Yeah. So there's a resident fee that we introduced, and it kind of got folded into this. Like, it was announced to the owners as we were announcing our pricing model. Response is pretty great. Again, nominal fee, very, very small. I think it's like $12 or $13 a month. But we provide a lot of service, just like we provide services to our clients. We provide a lot of services to our residents that are above and beyond industry standard.
We're going to do a whole nother thing on that.
Whole other thing on that.
Tenant community experience.
Yeah, but when it comes to that community experience, that's something else that we're starting to measure and track. There's a little bit of revenue from that too. But it all feeds back into the tenants love the properties. They stay. Owners are happy, and
that's what we should.
We're all in it together
for.
Absolutely.
Right? Creating happy tenants. Creating good quality properties and creating cash flow for our investors. Absolutely. That's what we should be making money for.
Yeah.
Not for kicking tenants out and then replacing them. Right. It creates pain for everybody.
Right. Well, I mean, those things do happen. And that's another thing when we set expectations. Like, not every present's wrapped up with a pretty little bow.
There are always going to be ups and downs.
There's going to be
some. We just don't want to win when you're on a down.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm excited about this. Are you far enough into it yet to see an impact to your revenue or to have feedback from a couple of cycles from your owner community?
Well, other than that, the 10 to 15% of our portfolio that we kind of started in December, which, like I said, we had conversations in October, November, kind of put their properties under it.
Pilot, essentially.
Yeah, and then we added the other 500 and roughly 500 properties, units in January 1 of this year. So it's still pretty fresh. However, looking at it, I think you asked me the same question quarter 2. We're going to have a lot bigger pool. I will say that when I look at owner expenses versus fees coming in, there's definitely a give to that. Owners are paying a little bit less for stuff, which is what we're shooting for, but at the same time, like the maintenance billing, the rent, like we're at an all-time rent collection high, which again, a lot of things all play into it. Yeah. So, I mean, it's really early in the year to answer that fairly, but I mean, so far I'm seeing pretty good trends.
Yeah. That what I'm hopeful for is that we have less empty properties. So our owners are collecting more rent. We're collecting more management fee. Our owners are getting more renewals, so they're not doing turns. We're collecting more renewal fees. That scenario is, it's a pricing mechanism where an owner can more easily establish a context of truth where they can feel like they can really be passive in their property management. So that's pretty awesome. Cool. Well, we'll check in 6 months or so after we've been through a few rounds of it or whatever.
Yeah. Give some data.
Yeah, we'll be able to analyze it and see how it really worked. Cool. Great conversation.
Yeah.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this is pretty insightful stuff. I actually learned a couple of things.
I'm really excited. Yeah,
I am too. This was really cool. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. And this is Podcast 45, right?
Yeah, Podcast 45.
As always, invest smart.
And live happy.
Take care.
Bye.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific personal or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions and information on this show are not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss.